Hi, good morning everyone. I'm Amr Rahman and welcome to ASEAN Kita, a show where we explore stories, challenges and opportunities that lies within the region. As Malaysia assumes the chairmanship of ASEAN in 2025, our region stands at a critical juncture. Rapid digital transformation has brought incredible opportunities, but it has also opened the door to unprecedented cybersecurity threats. Today, our lives from banking to businesses and even governance depend heavily on secure digital platforms. Yet, ASEAN faces distinct challenges in defending itself against cyber risk that span borders and threaten our collective prosperity. Joining me to unpack these complex issues and discuss how ASEAN can build a safer digital future is Adjunct Professor Murugason R. Thangaratnam, a cybersecurity expert and also the Chief Executive Officer of Novem CS. Thank you for joining us, Professor.
Good morning, Amru. Thanks for having me.
Prof, cybersecurity is often seen as something very technical for someone who isn't well versed in this field. How would you describe the biggest cybersecurity threats facing ASEAN today?
Where do I start? Where do I end? It takes a long time. So I think one of the reasons this has now become at the forefront of everyone's conversation is because of rapid digitalization. And this is exponentially grown after COVID. So I think the increased internet penetration, not only in Malaysia but in ASEAN, was after post-COVID. And because of that, there is obviously the attack surface, as we call it, has become much wider now. Obviously, there's also geopolitical tensions. So cyber has become a very powerful tool to now go cross-border and for various reasons, gather information, breach data, and all that stuff. And I think the biggest cybersecurity threats ASEAN is facing today is, if you're looking at it from a top-level view, it is moved from digital to kinetic targets. What are kinetic targets? Kinetic targets are basically critical infrastructures. So they are now actually going for operating systems. For example, it could be water. It could be hospitals. These are all categorized as critical national infrastructures. So that is the trend that we are seeing now. There's also a lot of data exfiltration from, so basically data breaches from IoT devices. We don't realize it, like, if you take a hospital, for example, today, it runs on IoT devices. So today, a pacemaker can be hacked. Okay, you can actually hack into an hospital system. So I think in Europe itself, I'm quoting Europe because these are recorded cases, so they actually reported. In Europe itself, there was close to 70 over hospitals which were hit last year. And when it hits a hospital, it not only hits the IT system, it also hits the OT system. So they can actually cripple the entire hospital. So all the ICU cases, for example, have to be transferred out, operations have to be cancelled, emergency has moved. So it's actually very, very critical. And then also, in ASEAN generally, we are still stuck with a lot of legacy systems. So if you look at some of our government agencies, even companies and SMEs, they still very much in legacy systems, which have very minimal security features made. And then obviously AI and deepfake has become the tip of everyone's tongue now. That has now changed the whole game. It has increased the attack surface even more because the traditional concept of somebody sitting in a room and hacking someone is becoming very obsolete. These are all AI generated attacks. And supply chain. We are no more an island. So we are all part of a supply chain. So if the organization itself invests in, say, securing themselves, but along the way, maybe the third party or fourth party supplier is not protected. So if you look at all the trends of cyber breaches happening worldwide, many of these attacks came through suppliers, not through the main company or organization. So I think those are some of the trends that we are seeing in ASEAN.
Prof, with more people in ASEAN relying on digital platforms for banking, businesses and even government services like you mentioned before, what are some common cyber attacks or cyber risks that everyday individuals and businesses should be aware of?
Okay, so if you're looking at individuals' point of view, I can't really completely detach individuals from businesses because individuals make up businesses. But if you're looking from individual point of view, today we have to be very, very aware of our endpoint devices. So when I say endpoint device, this is an endpoint device, a laptop. the mobile is a very, very critical endpoint device. We don't realize it today that 80% of what we do today is all through the mobile device. So we need to make sure that that device is protected. And if you look at an organizational point of view, as you go up the food chain in the organization, as you go up to the senior management and above, most of them do almost 90% of the work on a mobile device. You know, they hardly touch a laptop. For example, I touch my laptop only when I want to do a presentation. Besides that, everything else from payments to interactions to, you know, it's all through a mobile device. So you should be aware of protecting a mobile device. Please invest in a proper antivirus system. And also make sure you practice cyber hygiene. Switch off your location if you're not using it. I buy religiously. I do not use public Wi-Fi. Okay, so I only use. So these are a couple of things I will talk about maybe a bit later. Obviously, social engineering is a big problem. So social engineering is where, I'm sure you heard of what phishing emails are. So today, you receive phishing emails, and you click onto a link, and the next thing you know, they're already in your system. On top of phishing, there's also what's called spoofing, where they actually send, for example, an email from Astro AWANI. So they actually spoofed your entire email. And then when you click on the link, it actually goes to a landing page that shows Astro. So that's spoofing. Then you have whaling, which is higher. That is a very targeted phishing attack where it only targets high-value individuals. Maybe CEOs of companies or people of high value of a certain position. And then there's baiting, which is a bigger problem now, where a lot of these scams or a lot of these things happen via apps today. So when you start getting pop-up ads, especially when you're on social media, those who are aware, like for example myself, because I'm in the industry, typically when I see a pop-up ad, I normally will try to delete all the apps which have pop-up ads, but if there has, at least I have the sensibility of going to the X there and clicking and closing it, But if you're looking at senior citizens or younger children, they just click. So the minute they click, it goes to another landing page which gives you a very, very too good to be true story, and that's typically how it happens, So these are the ways which you have to start being aware. Third-party exposure, as I told you just now, you may be secure, but you must also make sure that your third-party apps are secure. Configuration mistakes, this is for businesses. So sometimes somebody just comes in to update your server, or they come to fix a problem. And it can be a simple thing as, they upper password. They go into the password, they fix everything, do some patchwork, and then they leave. So what should the organization do? You should immediately go in there and change the password and update it. Okay. But they tend to just leave it as admin123, for example. So those are the simple things like that. Then insider threats, obviously that's another issue. Disgruntled employee. So that insider, there's also with intent and without intent. So a disgruntled employee might want to target you, or just pure carelessness. Picking up a thumb drive from the floor and just plugging it into a system just to check what's going on. It could be as simple as that. And the entire organizational system goes down. Ransomware is still a major issue. It is still the number one issue, where they encrypt your systems and they demand for ransom. The number of ransomware cases have grown by 500% over the last 2 years. And the amount of ransom being asked also is pretty high now, because they have become a bit brave and bold. And as I was saying, poor cyber hygiene, so avoid unprotected Wi-Fi networks, since, people will be watching this. Try to use VPNs if you're in an organization. Implement your multi-factor authentication for all your apps, which is surprising a lot of people don't do. Have a company policy for passwords. Encrypt your data. I come from a generation where we used to have solid documents where we seal. We hand it over to somebody, someone opens it up, reads it, puts it in a shredder, and today we just forward solid documents on WhatsApp, encrypted. Have proper firewalls, update your software on a regular basis, which is very important. If you look at all the softwares on your mobile and on your laptop, typically the updates, if you actually were to go in and start reading what these updates are about, they're typically on security bugs. So you need to update your some people don't update it, although despite the fact that they see the warning there, update, they just leave it on there for 1 week, 2 weeks. You need to limit your employee access to certain data. So you need to compartmentalize the data and make sure that certain employees are not able to access certain data. Okay, so that's another thing that you need to do. And you can also obviously use password managers now. If you can't remember your passwords, because people tend to have that issue. I think these are some of the things people should be aware of, basically to protect yourself. There's no silver bullet as far as cybersecurity is concerned. It is not a matter of if you can be hacked, it's when you're going to be hacked.
Yeah.
So whether you're on the list yet. So
Okay.
that's then you got to know that.
Yeah, Prof, if you look at ASEAN as a region itself, we often hear that ASEAN countries have different levels of cybersecurity readiness. So how does this disparity affect the region's ability to defend against cyber threats?
So I think that's pretty obvious, because I think you're looking at, not everybody is on the same level playing field. So everyone's got a different starting point, everybody has a different maturity rate. Malaysia, probably our neighbors Singapore, they are pretty proactive. They have some national cybersecurity structures and strong tech ecosystems. So we are also pretty strong in the tech ecosystem. But if you look at other member states, for example, just to pick up, not to point out anyone specifically, but if you look at places like Myanmar, Cambodia, Laos, they have minimal resources, and poor tech infrastructure, because you need to also have the infra to support it. That limits their level of cyber readiness. So I think that's one of the reasons why it is challenging. And then the digital integration also varies between countries. Again, how mature you are in terms of digital integration. So I think that's the other thing that needs to also be, you have to come up the posture level. Lack of talent is a major issue. Okay, and lack of talent, is something that is something we all talk about, we all highlight, but very few people tend to do anything about it. So I think there is a lot of mismatch between what the education system is producing and what the employers are looking for. So that's one challenge. Obviously, salaries are also very, very important. If you want to hire the best talent, you got to pay the best money. So so that's why you would see a lot of disparity between where the top guys are, and so you need to also have technical people. So I think it's a whole of nation approach you got to start looking at, and obviously better working environments. Everybody wants to work in a better environment, better companies, and all that stuff. So the lack of talent is crucial. So I think these are some of the reasons where, as a region, I think individually every country has got some element of, but I think as a region, the challenge is now how to actually bring everyone up to, you can't bring everyone up to the same level, but actually, at least as close as possible. And I always say, we are all humans at the end of the day. The haves have to help the have-nots. And also because at the end of the day, we may be secure in Malaysia as a company, but a supplier of mine might be in a country that is not so secure. Okay, so it still affects me at the end of the day. So I think this is something that, this is where the ASEAN Chairmanship will help. Hopefully Malaysia takes the lead and starts, I see a lot of good stuff happening, so I think the leadership is aware of it. And I hope at least they kickstart it, because there is a term for the chairmanship. But at least if they kickstart it and then get the ball rolling, I think I'm always very positive that the hope is there, that ASEAN can be as strong a bloc, as sovereign and as secure as EU, for example. So EU is basically leading the charge as far as these things are concerned.
Well, there's still a lot to unpack on how ASEAN can build a safer digital for the future with Adjunct Professor Murugason R Thangaratnam, Chief Executive Officer from Novem CS. But we'll take a short break and we'll be right back after this.
Kami datang ni nak beraya.
Nikmati simfoni kemeriahan dengan hiburan yang terbaik.
Apa yang macam pokok kelapa tu?
Why bother?
Serta gelak ketawa yang memecahkan suasana.
Adakah tuan-tuan hamba ini datang untuk meminang saya?
Jangan bergerak.
Tu dia dah sampai pun.
Masuk. Ini ke bapa yang keempat?
Inilah orang. Alamak.
Selamat datang
ke rumah bujang.
Kisah yang memberikan teladan.
Saya cukup diajar oleh mak ayah saya.
Kalau hilang satu nanti tak sempurna.
Lavish betul.
Yeah.
Geram aku.
Abang nampak? Close ke?
Dan drama yang menyentuh hati.
Sampai hati abang buat begini pada Tinder. Awak jangan naik pasal dengan saya. Kita kawan ya. Nice to meet you.
Bukan hak ke? Kaplah terakhir, Hai Kuasa.
Ini baru betul.
Raya kali ini, meriah lain macam bersama Astro.
Daulat Tuanku.
Welcome back to ASEAN Kita, a show where we explore the stories, challenges and opportunities that lies within the region. And joining us today is Adjunct Professor Murugason R, Thangaratnam, Chief Executive Officer from Novem CS, to talk about how ASEAN can build a safer digital future. Now, Prof, there have been calls for ASEAN to develop a more unified cybersecurity strategy. What are the main obstacles preventing this from happening, and what steps can be taken to overcome them, Prof?
So I think ASEAN I think they kick-started it back in 2015, 2016 is when the discussion started. Decided to come with a ASEAN strategy. I think the second phase is ending this year, and they're now looking at the next phase. So before talking about the challenges, I don't want it to sound all doom and gloom, you know, and frighten everyone. But let's look at the positive stuff. So, you know, in Malaysia, for example, we have the National Cybersecurity Agency, which is the lead agency for cybersecurity in Malaysia, which comes under the MKN, PMO. So they are currently working on the Malaysian Cybersecurity Strategy 2.0, which is 2025 to 2030, which is going to be launched this year. The first one, 1.0, 2020-2024, laid the foundation for what we see today as a Cybersecurity Act, which is a landmark thing. It's actually a big thing because from industry players like me, this is something we were looking, you know, because we lacked an act. At the end of the day, you need to have a baseline, you know, so that has already happened. And because of our chairmanship, Malaysia is also leading the development of the third version of the ASEAN Cybersecurity Cooperation Strategy 2026-2030. Okay, and NACSA will also be organizing an ASEAN Cybersecurity Forum during the annual CIDES conference this year. So a lot of good stuff is happening, so we're all optimistic that, you know, things will start moving. Now let's get to the challenges. Lack of a strategic mindset. So sometimes the problem is everything is in silo. So there's no proper strategy in place because everybody seems to be doing their own things. Getting everyone together on the same table, so getting the right people at the right table to speak the right things, that is the bigger challenge, you know. Policy preparedness. Unfortunately, we are all bogged down by procedures. The bad guys are not. Okay, so it takes us time, you know. So the threat actors seem to be able to adopt and onboard themselves and use tools quicker than us. You know, so because for us everything we need to know whether we can actually use this tool, whether this tool falls under this act, whether we have, you know, this agency has got a puncak kuasa, you know, to actually do this. So it takes a long time. The laws also take a long time because you have to go through a process before you pass the law. So sometimes the problem is when you actually pass the law, gazette the law, and it comes into force, some of the things that you have discussed there is already obsolete. So laws also have to start becoming dynamic. So, as I said, silo mentality. So, a lack of a unified framework is obviously a major challenge, which they are working towards. In private sector, there is a blurred line between private sector and public sector today. You can't actually say this is private sector, this is public sector, because they're all interlinked. Cyber risk is still perceived to be an IT problem. Okay, so they look at it as an IT problem, and then they don't look at it as a business problem. They don't look at it as risk. You know, so that's another issue. That's another challenge. Industry struggles to meet demands because of talent gap again, obviously. Limited sharing of intelligence. You know, if you want to have a unified ASEAN, then you need to share data. You need to share your sad stories and your good stories both. You know, so it's like, you know, you have a neighbor and the neighbor is in away for a month, and someone keeps coming and peeping over the gate, and every day you see someone coming. The least you should do is call up your neighbor and say there's a suspicious character. If you just keep it to yourself, and then 3 weeks down the road, you find that the house has been broken into. You know, he's still your neighbor. So that kind of simple. I'm just simplifying it for everyone. So you need to share data. Intelligence is worthless if you don't share it. And obviously, the reason they don't share is lack of trust. So one of the things we need to do is actually start building up the trust, not only nationally but also from an ASEAN region. So even here, sometimes, if, for example, the government was to introduce something, the process or the onboarding is not as fluid as they expect it to be, because there's no trust. You know, when they look at it, oh, I don't trust you with my data. Why do you want my data? So you've got to build up the trust. And that lack of trust also comes from the fact that there's lack of transparency. So it has to be a whole of government kind of thing, and a whole of nation. And also the rapid technology evolution. Honestly, even I can't keep up. Okay, as we speak today, somebody is launching something that is, you know, next gen. You know, so by the time you can even study how it works, you know, so this is where, you know, these are the challenges. Having said the challenges, to overcome it, ongoing discussions must continue. We have to move forward. and start discussing and trying to find a common ground. That's the most important thing. We may not agree on everything because every country has got its own unique issues. Some may not want to share certain things because of various reasons, but there will be a common ground. For example, water is a common ground. Although we are all different countries, we still need to drink water. We still need medical aid. We still need power. So at least let's start protection at that level first. So we find a common ground. And cyber diplomacy, cyber economics, these are all words you're going to be hearing in the future. There are already countries, especially in Europe, who are actually now appointing cyber diplomats. They call them ambassadors of cyber affairs. So that's how seriously they're looking at cyber. Somebody to just look at cyber affairs because it's diplomacy at a different level. So I think these are some of the things that are the challenges and at least the way we should outcome. But the discussions have to be ongoing. Now, that's very important. The people in power, the people who are able to make a change, we must start having some change agents in every ASEAN country who actually drives this. So I think that's very important.
Prof, cyber attacks are becoming more sophisticated as we see nowadays, targeting like critical infrastructures like power grids and financial systems and water systems like you mentioned just now. So how can ASEAN ensure the security of these vital assets, Prof?
So there's two sides to it. One is from a national level, they obviously have to all start building their own, increasing their posture, as we call it. Again, as I said, it is a bit difficult because everything costs money. So there has to be significant investment. So I think one of the ways you've got to start looking at is, I think nations have to start looking at cybersecurity as what it is, security. It's not an IT problem, it is national security. So it's just like how we have the armed forces for land, we have the Air Force for the air, we have maritime security, we have border control and all that stuff. We need to start understanding that cyber is just a different landscape. So we need to have that minimum. So you've got to start looking at it as national security. From an ASEAN level, obviously, I think ultimately you need to have an ASEAN Cyber Task Force. You need to have an ASEAN level cooperative force which has got representatives from all the countries because some of these attacks involve cross-border. So I think these are some of the things that you need to do. And you rightly brought up what we spoke about just earlier, that go for the critical infrastructures first, because that one we share a common ground, all of us. So I think that's very important.
Yeah, Prof, real-time, like you mentioned just now, real-time intelligence sharing between nations is crucial for combating cyber threats. But some governments hesitate due to security concerns. So how can ASEAN balance national security interests with the need for greater collaboration?
So, as I said, this is, again, I go back to the same word. You have to find a common ground. So balancing is not easy. It's easier said than done. But you need to collaborate. If you don't collaborate, then whatever intelligence that you have, because I always feel we need to have a baseline of it's us against them. So when I say it's us, it's the good guys against the bad guys. So now we need to define what is good, what is bad. So we need to understand that there is this entire economy called the dark web, which, if it was categorized as a nation, is the third largest economy in the world today. So the amount of money that is in the dark web, after the US and China, the dark web is actually the third largest economy. So they are a very well funded, very well organized ecosystem. So you need to understand that we all have a common ground, that we have a common enemy. So I think that is something that, once you find the common ground, once you pick a number of areas which you want to collaborate on first as a baseline, then I think things will start moving. Then you can start expanding it more towards other non-critical areas, how companies, organizations, people to people, So pretty much like how, for example, I'm sure the EU had a lot of challenges when they started, because it's countries with who at one time war with each other on different sides of the fence. But today they're able to agree on a lot of common stuff. So I think there is already a template. So we just have to look at it and localize it to our own cultural norms and our own needs. So I think that's one of the things that we need to do to balance.
As ASEAN move towards a greater digitalization, Prof, how do we measure strong cybersecurity measures? How do we ensure that strong cybersecurity measures that doesn't come at the cost of personal privacy and digital freedom, Prof?
This is the $1 million question. So balancing national security with privacy, and also I'll also add on innovation. How do you actually balance that? You know, if you're looking at the people in the tech business, they say we don't want to be overly regulated because it curbs innovation. If you look at the general public, they'll say, you know, we don't want to, you know, people to be, you know, invading into our privacy. For me personally, privacy is a myth today. It doesn't exist anymore. Okay, so it's a question of us now already sharing whatever we need to share on various platforms, and then now trying to say, you've got to respect my privacy. How is that? How do I have to respect your privacy when whatever details I need about you is already on the social media platform? You know, so I think we need to start looking at, take a step back and start thinking of what's important to us, how do we want to secure it, and we need to start also looking at how we share data. Okay, so I think sometimes technology tends to excite us. So we get excited. We all want to onboard something. We all want to buy something. We all want to be the first to do something. But then I think we need to take a step back and see whether we are doing the right thing. So I think balancing is, again, messaging is very important. The messenger also is very important. Okay, so you need to start making people understand that cybersecurity is national security. Your actions, no matter how trivial or how you might just think is, it doesn't mean anything, could actually result in a national infrastructure going down. Okay, so I think that education has to be ongoing, because I think education is key as far as cybersecurity is concerned. I see the journey over the next 3 to 4 years is going to be very much on awareness, on training, on making people understand that today all of us are weaponized. We are all armed. We all carry a handphone. As long as you carry a handphone, you're weaponized. Okay, now how do you now responsibly use that handphone? Okay, so technology is a double-edged sword. It's a knife. You can use a knife to cut a fruit. You can also use it to hurt someone. So now, but you need someone to come and educate and tell you that you can't hurt someone with a knife. This knife is for cutting a fruit. It's not for bending to hurt someone. And if you hurt someone, there are consequences. So I think that ecosystem is what is being now looked at globally, to be not only to restrict it to ASEAN, but globally. Okay. So I think it is always going to be a challenge, but we need to find the right balance, not the perfect balance, but the right balance. So that is something that everyone needs to get involved in, and it has to be a whole of nation effort.
Okay, thank you very much, Prof. Well, that was Adjunct Professor Murugason R. Thangaratnam, Chief Executive Officer from Novem CS, who shared his insights on how ASEAN can build a safer digital future. I guess that's all the time that we have for today's episode of ASEAN Kita. I'm Amir Rahman. Thank you for watching and have a good day.